Marvel movies. Disney just won't let this content farm die, will they? Nope, they seem like they are completely keen to just continuing to milk this content farm until it is bone dry. You know, I thought that Marvel had hit kind of a new low after the meme that was Jared Leto's Morbius movie, but to my surprise, the folks over at Disney said, hold my beer, watch this. And what did they spit out but the 2024 travesty that was Kraven the Hunter? Now, I didn't see this movie when it came out in theaters, and apparently, I wasn't alone, seeing as it lost somewhere around $60 million at the box office. But recently, I, along with many other people, saw that this movie got added to Netflix, so I thought, what the fuck? I'll subject myself to this Marvel slop and see if this movie really did deserve the fat 15% in Rotten Tomatoes. And, boy, howdy, folks, was I not disappointed. Don't get me wrong, this movie is bad, but sort of in that way that like a train wreck or a car crash is bad. Like, you know what you're watching isn't good, it's definitely bad, but for some reason you can't take your eyes off of it. So if you didn't know, Kraven the Hunter is a supervillain from the Spider-Man series. Sort of like Tom Hardy's Venom series, Kraven the Hunter is a kind of reimagination of the Kraven character as this badass kind of anti-hero-esque character. Unfortunately, though, the guy from Kick-Ass, as solid of an actor as he is not Tom Hardy. So this project seemed like it was destined to fail from the start. So originally in the comics and the animated series from my childhood, Kraven is depicted as one of the many supervillains that regularly show up to f*** with our web-slinging hero. Now as a kid, for whatever reason, I kind of loved Kraven. I'm not really sure why, there was just something about him that I thought was kind of cool. Like, he was very much different from all of the other villains in kind of the Spider-Man universe, but I guess this does make sense as he's very much just kind of a normal guy in a universe that's filled with like suit-wearing, superpower-having super villains. So in that kind of world, a Russian man wearing a lion's pelt really kind of stands out. So basically, Kraven is the Marvel Spider-Man villain trope of a big game hunter. He likes to hunt and stuff and was originally depicted as being a man of honor that would hunt his prey fairly, only depending on hand-to-hand combat and other tactics, using a mystical serum to increase his physical abilities that slowed his aging process. Well, that is until they started giving him guns. Basically, Kraven as a character in the Spider-Verse kind of got obsessed with hunting Spider-Man because he viewed him as the most dangerous game, and he ends up being a founding member of the Sinister Six and a reoccurring villain in Spider-Man. However, the Kraven portrayed by Aaron Taylor Johnson of Kick-Ass fame in the Kraven the Hunter movie is, well, not that. Again, Marvel was kind of in its anti-hero kind of spin-off mode here with the likes of like Morbius, Venom, and now Kraven the Hunter, as they are very much wanting to reimagine these kind of classic villains from Spider-Man as anti-villains, anti-heroes. And on paper, that does sound like it could be a good idea. Unfortunately for them, though, in execution, this has failed basically every time. The point I'm trying to make here is that Kraven the Hunter in name and some story aspects is the same character as the Kraven from the comics and the animated series. At its core, though, this character that is portrayed in the movie is a completely different character from the animated series and the comic character, as we will soon very much see. So the first 8 minutes of our movie teases and introduces our hero as we see Aaron Taylor Johnson has somehow found himself in the cold, dark, lonely world of a Russian prison. As our ears are caressed with a classic Russian movie soundtrack, the hymn to Red October from the Sean Connery classic movie Hunt for Red October. Now, I should tell you that the first 8 minutes of this movie are probably the best scenes in terms of the cinematography of this entire movie. So unfortunately, it's only gonna go downhill from here, folks. This probably explains why the movie studio decided to release this first kind of 8-minute segment online for free, trying to build up hype for this movie when it was originally released in theaters. Just a note, if you ever see a studio releasing like a large segment, a large clip of their movie for free before the movie has even aired in theaters, That's never a good sign. So we see our main character Kraven getting settled in this hellhole of a prison, Kraven not uttering a word for the first 3 minutes of the movie that really kind of builds the setting and the tone of the film. And when he finally does speak, he speaks in Russian. Now, there's several characters here with some not great Russian accents here in this movie from people who very obviously aren't Russian. Personally, this didn't really bother me too much, but it is very noticeable. Actually, now that I think about it, this isn't even the first time that Aaron Taylor Johnson has played a superhero with a Russian accent. As who could forget his his foray as Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. But hey, props to ATJ for memorizing and delivering all of his Russian lines pretty well. So Kraven meets his tall, bug-eyed Russian cellmate in this kind of goofy, lighthearted scene that is pretty on brand as we've seen for Marvel movies. Kraven telling the prisoner he's only going to be here for 3 days and then asking if he can sit with him at lunch.
No.
Next, our boy Kraven is benching in the prison yard where some goons try to haze him, but he easily overpowers them, knocking them both out, giving us our first kind of teaser at our hero's powers and what exactly he's capable of. Now, I'm going to come back to this point later in the video, but trying to keep track of just what exactly Kraven's powers are in this film is, it's kind of a bit of a headache. No, seriously, go watch this film and try to sit down and keep track of what every single power this guy can do is. So Kraven's taken to meet with a Russian gangster, a boss in the prison, a prisoner named Semyon Choyny, a gangster who controls the Kirov gang that traffics arms all around the world. This is Kraven's true purpose for being in this prison, as just like Arya Stark from Game of Thrones, our boy Kraven has a list of criminals who bring evil to the world that he hunts down and kills. We learn that Kraven has built up a bit of a reputation in the criminal underworld, specifically as the myth of the Hunter, a mysterious man who hunts down and kills criminals, striking fear into their hearts in a very Batman-esque way, you know, minus the fact that he actually kills people, unlike Batman. As in one of the best action scenes in the entire movie, we watch Kraven rip out a tooth of a tiger, a jaguar, whatever this big cat is that is the Rug, as we see him brutally stabbing these 3 gangsters to death in a very bloody scene for a Marvel movie. Yeah, they really want to hit it home early that this is not your average Marvel film, or at least that's what they want you to think, as we have to remember this movie is R-rated, specifically for its bloody violent scenes as well as some language. Now, on the surface, in theory, that is something that I'm down for. I've wished for years that Marvel would have pulled the trigger kind of earlier on in making some of their, superhero movies R-rated. But unfortunately for Kraven the Hunter, this very much felt like a desperate attempt by Marvel to try to drum up hype and interest in this movie after the world, over the last, 10, 15 years, has become exceedingly tired and burnt out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe bullshit. We watch Kraven escape the prison using his superhuman physical abilities and strength to climb, jump, and run away, the Russian guards pulling their best stormtrooper impression as they somehow fail to hit him with a single bullet. He runs deep into a storm where he comes face to face with a wolf, his eyes glowing yellow, the wolf deciding to just fuck off, I guess. So I guess our boy Kraven has some kind of Dr. Dolittle, speak with animals type power going on here. Now, being legit here, I'm very much not trying to take the piss, as they say, but throughout this entire 2-long-hour movie, they never fully explain Kraven's powers. We just see them in action, so I can only speculate here exactly what the powers of our main character actually are, specifically that our boy has some kind of speak to animals, mind control, zookeeper-esque Dr. Dolittle powers going on here, because that's the only thing that I can think of that explains many of the unexplained scenes that happen throughout this movie with animals. We see our boy finally manage to escape boarding a plane that was waiting for him in the snowstorm. We get our obligatory superhero thirst trap shot with some great overhead and lighting. My boy Aaron looking jacked as f***. Yeah, Marvel really loves their thirst trap scenes, don't they? But hey, big kudos to Aaron Taylor Johnson for getting in what is arguably pretty insane shape for this movie. It is crazy to think that this dude is the same dude from Kick-Ass, now looking jacked as hell as the main character of a Marvel movie. And just like that, the best segment of this entire movie comes to an end, and yeah, I try to tell you folks, it's all downhill from here. So this movie has a 2-hour runtime. We've already spent 8 minutes on this kind of high-action opening sequence, so what do you think that they do next in the film? They hit us with a 25-minute flashback origin story. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I understand that they want to give us kind of the origin story for our main character, specifically how Kraven became the Kraven that we just saw, as well as trying to give him some character motivation and like all of that. In theory, it does make sense, but it's in the execution that this very much falls short, and talk about a drastic change of pace from the first 8 minutes of this film. So we get flashback 16 years earlier to a set of teenage half-brothers, Sergei and Dmitry Kravenov. This one is Kraven, by the way, if you couldn't tell. These kids are the sons of the Russian gangster millionaire Nikolai Kravenov, played by Russell Crowe, who is hands down the best character in this entire movie. I'm not joking, any scene that Russell Crowe's character is in is immediately like 10 times better. It's just a shame that he wasn't in more scenes in this movie. So their dad shows up, pulling them out of school, telling Sergei that his mother is dead, and that she was weak and sick in the mind, and that she unalived herself, as the kids say these days. Literally with like one line of dialogue with one scene, we basically already completely understand everything we need to know about the Kravenov father, about Nikolai Kravenov, basically that he is a cold-hearted Russian gangster who believes that people with mental illness are weak and wants to mold his sons to be strong men so they can take over his family business, aka being a mobster and a gangster. So what does he decide to do with his grieving young sons after telling them this very tragic news? Pack your bags, boys, we're going hunting in Africa because that's what real men do. Once again, Russell Crowe's character is by far the best character in this entire movie, and I think a lot of that has to do with his performance and the way that he is able to convey just how much of a sick, toxic fuck that Nikolai Kravenov really is. We flash over to northern Ghana, where we are introduced to a new character, a young girl named Calypso, who is playing with her grandmother's tarot cards. Now, for all of the die-hard Marvel fans, Marvel nerds, they instantly knew that Calypso, this girl, is the same supervillain character, the character with the same name in the Marvel Universe. A character that is very much linked to Kraven within kind of the Marvel lore. But the Calypso that we see in this movie is, well, basically nothing at all like the Calypso that many people know from the comics and the animated series. So we see Granny teach young Calypso how to do a tarot card reading, where we get some very giga foreshadowing on the origin story of Kraven and how he gets his powers, as the grandma gives Calypso a potion that will heal whoever drinks it. Again, talk about foreshadowing. I mean, this isn't even like teased foreshadowing at this point. They're just like slapping us in the face with this like we're complete idiots. Now, this could have been a really cool moment, a really cool story thread, because the grandma says that the potion bears the symbol of Papa Ligba, a spirit in West African kind of mythology and kind of like spirit lore that serves as the gatekeeper of the spirit realm, a guardian of the crossroads, if you will. An actually really cool figure in voodoo and kind of spirituology, but unfortunately, he never gets referenced again. So the Kravenov boys accompany their dad on the hunt for this legendary lion, which he continues to refer to as Lion Tsar, as in Nikolai's words,
"Men who kill legend becomes legend."
As well, in these scenes, we are introduced to Alessandro Nivola's character, Alexei Yeksevich, a Russian mercenary and gangster who, spoiler alert, is revealed to be the Rhino. Yeah, that Rhino. Alexei, we learn, suffers from a medical condition that makes him very weak and feeble, and when he tries to approach Nikolai about working together as partners, as criminal gangster partners, Nikolai basically tells him to fuck right off. In many ways, Alexei as a character represents kind of like everything that Nikolai despises, specifically like weakness, physical weakness, and yeah, that definitely won't come back to bite him in the ass later in this movie. So the boys continue to hunt with their father, stumbling upon the Lion Tsar, the creature looking deep into the eyes of Sergei, when suddenly his dad shoots it, angering the lion, who mauls our young main character and then carries him off. Meanwhile, Calypso is with her parents, who are photographing the wildlife in Africa, when for some reason she decides to wander off, coming across the lion and the mauled, dying Sergei. This is the first of many scenes in this movie where you are just better off not asking any questions and just going along with it, because if you try to ask questions, your head's just gonna explode. We see the lion's blood mixed with Sergei as Calypso gives him the potion, tucking the tarot card into his pocket for reasons, I guess, as we see him medevaced off to a hospital. And ta-da, just like that, we have the origin story of Kraven's abilities and powers. Now again, we are never exactly told, it's never exactly clarified what exactly Kraven's powers really are. We're only really ever showed these powers on screen, and then we, the audience, are supposed to kind of just infer what they are. And it seemed like they were doing this on purpose, that they were making his powers ambiguous so they could just have Kraven do a bunch of like superhuman bullshit throughout the movie, and like we, the audience, weren't supposed to question it. Yet here I was finding myself questioning it every single time he would do some random new shit like this. So again, Sergei gets medevaced to the hospital where he is declared medically dead for 3 minutes, when suddenly he comes back to life, revived by the powers of the Papa Ligba juice, his eyes flashing yellow like the lion's. Nikolai then takes his sons home, blaming Dimitri's weakness for the accidents with Sergei. Basically, the main thing you need to take away from this 25 minutes of flashback scenes is the origin of Kraven's powers, his loving, protective relationship with his half-brother Dimitri, and Dimitri's relationship with their father. The fact that Dimitri is very much the weak one of the two brothers, and he is desperately seeking his father's approval. Sergei, though, has finally had enough of his dad's shit as he decides to run away from home to a plot of land in rural eastern Russia that his mother's family owned. Over this kind of montage of scene, we see a little bit more of Kraven's new developing powers, such as superhuman hearing, eyesight, strength, agility, as well. Again, they kind of tease this Dr. Dolittle-esque relationship he has with animals, but again, ultimately, they never explain this. Sergei Kraven again makes this place his new home as he encounters a group of poachers cutting off these wild oxen's horns. Sergei, in a rage, kills both of these men as the flashback origin scene comes to an end. Now, they were very much trying to kind of pull on our heartstrings in the way they displayed the relationship of our young kind of Kravinoff brothers here, and I don't know if it was just like the quality of the acting, probably more so the questionable writing for this movie, but for whatever reason, it kind of didn't really land with me. Don't get me wrong, there's some really talented, good actors that are in this movie, so I'm way more inclined to believe that it was the lack of quality in writing that explains like a lot that was wrong with this movie, not lack of acting talent or lack of trying from the actors in many of these scenes, especially scenes that are supposed to come off as kind of emotional. More often than not, they feel like they just come off as awkward.
I'm sorry, Dima. I am. Of course we're gonna go.
Go. So, flashback over, we pick back up where we left off in the present. Kraven comes home from his mission. He gets a voicemail from his father asking him to come home, but nope, just kidding, it's actually his brother mimicking his father's voice. The first teaser that Sergei's brother Dimitri will become the Marvel supervillain, the Chameleon. We get a parallel scene from the flashback as Kraven encounters more poachers on his land, killing them in some more bloody, violent scenes. I didn't notice this the first time that I watched this scene, but Kraven actually bites this fucking dude's nose off in this scene. Yeah, look, I love like bloody action scenes as much as the next dude out there, but I'm not gonna lie, it really does feel like they made a lot of these action scenes extra bloody and violent, literally just to get that R rating, for like the edgy factor, if you will. Almost as if they were shouting, hey guys, look, we made an R-rated Marvel movie, please come and watch our movie so we can make some money. Instead of the movie actually being R-rated because, like, it deserves to be R-rated because of the story themes, the more kind of serious adult story that they are trying to tell. I don't know, it just felt kind of forced to me. Like, basically, they were trying to be edgy on purpose and just kind of shoehorning extra violent scenes into this just to get that R rating for the sake of getting that R rating and being edgy. Does that make sense? Anyway, one of these poachers escapes. Kraven tracks him down to London where he kills him. It's then that we are reintroduced to the girl Calypso in the present day, who is now a lawyer working in London. She gives a speech at her friend's funeral, the friend being killed by Simon Cherney's gang, the Russian gangster that Kraven killed in the opening 8 minutes of the movie, who then shows up to say hi to Calypso, but our boy Kraven. Kraven somehow knowing who she is and the fact that she was the girl that saved him when he was just a boy. But if we remember, they literally met for like half a second and he was basically unconscious and bleeding out. None of this is explained at all. They completely hand wave everything and basically just chalk all of this up to the fact that Kraven is a master hunter and tracker. A ploy that they do repeatedly throughout this movie to basically just try to explain everything away so we don't ask questions.
Hunting people down is sort of my thing.
But like how? How does he do it? Maybe if they actually just showed us instead of him just saying it over and over again in our movie, we wouldn't ask so many questions. This is something that drives me crazy in media. Like, why tell us something through exposition that you could easily show us through character actions? And instead we get this very half-assed response and poorly written kind of hand-waving exposition from our main character that we are just supposed to not question at all. Talk about fucking lazy. So Kraven tells Calypso who he is and that he killed the gangster who killed her friend and that he wants to team up with her because I guess he needs her help in finding the criminals on his list, which makes absolutely no sense because he literally just told us that finding people is his thing. So why does he need this random woman who saved his life when he was a child, we still don't know how he found that out, to do the thing that he said that he was the best at? Now, I really like Ariana DeBose. I think that's how you say her name, the actress that plays Calypso. She is great, but they did her zero favors in how they wrote her character in this movie. And I'm not gonna lie, in my opinion, Calypso, the character, serves basically 0 point in being in this movie outside of the flashback scenes and literally one scene that happens towards the climax of the movie. It basically feels like they included her because, oh my god, Marvel reference, oh my god, she's a supervillain character that's in the Spider-Man universe, even though the character she's portraying is very much not the same character. Outside of this and the fact that she has one scene in the climax where she brings Kraven back to life with Papa Ligba juice, she basically has no point in being in this movie. Again, this is at no fault of the actress who is playing the character and is completely to do with how they wrote this story. Like, they could have at least gave her some kind of meaningful role, whether that's as like a character who aids the character progression of Kraven as a character, kind of being almost this guiding kind of moral light or influencing his character in some kind of arc, in some kind of way to give him character progression. Hell, I would have even taken a love interest at this point. But again, her character is basically worthless and pointless in this movie. Okay, so we see our friend the Rhino again, who has been moving up in the criminal world. He hears about the Hunter taking out Chorney in prison, so he decides he's going to take over his business, meeting with Chorney's top 3 guys, teasing his Rhino powers as he takes 3 point-blank gunshots like it's nothing. This character is incredibly goofy, but it actually kind of works because Alessandro Nivola is a good enough actor to pull it off. But this is definitely the most unique take on the Rhino supervillain from the Spider-Man universe that I've ever seen. Next, we see a grown-up Dimitri singing in his club while his father has a meeting with Chorney's goons. We get another more on-the-nose reference that Dimitri will become the supervillain, the Chameleon, when his father says that he is like a chameleon in the way that he can copy voices.
I don't trust anyone who doesn't like Tony Bennett.
However, this meeting with the goon is a setup by the Rhino, who attempts to assassinate Nikolai, but ultimately the hit fails. The Rhino is then sent video footage of Kraven escaping the prison from the opening scene. It's somehow analyzing that this is Sergei Kravenov, the son of Nikolai, and that, surprise, surprise, this man is Kraven the Hunter, the man, the myth that criminals of the underworld fear throughout the world. Now, don't worry, they do somewhat explain this scene later on in the movie, specifically how someone could have figured out that Sergei is Kraven the Hunter, but it's definitely not the best explanation. Rhino tells his goon to put the Foreigner on this, enter in our final Marvel character appearance of the Foreigner, a master hitman and another supervillain in the Spider-Man universe, one that I personally knew absolutely nothing about. Apparently, he has the ability to like put people in like a trance, like a hypnotic trance through his eye contact, making it seem as though he's moving like faster than the human eye can track, when in reality they're just hypnotized for like 10 seconds or something. Again, they don't explain this to us at all. We basically just have to figure it out through watching him do it several times throughout the movie. I assume that they just thought the audience would either figure it out or we should have known because of this relatively obscure Marvel supervillain reference. Maybe I'm an idiot and should have figured this out sooner, but genuinely, I thought this dude had the powers to like stop time for like 3/4 of the movie. Sergei surprises Dmitri for his birthday, Dad shows up in an awkward family reunion, Dmitri gets drunk, Sergei takes him home, where Dmitri wasted tells him that he forgives him for leaving him alone for all these years with his father. Sergei can't sleep in the apartment because of his superhuman hearing, so he goes and sleeps in the park, coming back the next morning to find the apartment in shambles. He looks out over the balcony, seeing his brother being put into a van by a group of goons. Hold on a second, we literally just watched him go up the elevator to the penthouse in this scene right before this takes place, so like, how did he not hear with his superhuman hearing his brother being kidnapped? I mean, they literally just established in the scene prior that he has like superhuman hearing, right? Am I just being nitpicking here? Or did they just completely forget what they were doing? Sergei jumps off the balcony, landing on the ground below. Am I crazy, or does this CGI just look off? A lot of the CGI in this movie is done at night or in dark scenes, which is a very classic way to hide CGI effects and make them look way more natural. But I don't know, some of the CGI in this movie just feels not great. Kraven chases after the van, we see more of his crazy superhuman abilities, but ultimately the baddies get away with his brother. For some reason, Kraven goes and asks Calypso for help tracking these guys down, but again, he keeps telling us throughout the movie that he is the best hunter in the world, that tracking people down is what he does. So why does he need help? I guess he's amazing at tracking everyone down except for in this one specific case. She gets the location where Dmitri is being held, but it was all a setup to lure Kraven out by the Rhino and the Foreigner. Kraven murders his way through this Turkish monastery, my man hitting a wall run in the process, adding that to his list of powers, I guess. But again, all of this was a setup to lure Kraven out to try and kill him.
How do you know my name? Who set me up? Who took my brother?
Surely there was a better take of this scene than that. Like, come on, man. I know that Aaron Taylor Johnson is better than this. Please tell me, guys, am I being too harsh on this movie here? Am I crazy? I feel like I'm going crazy right now because that scene just felt so fucking cringe to me. So Rhino takes Dmitri to his lair, telling him the truth about his brother Sergei, revealing his true identity as Kraven the Hunter. Oh, also, there's a little continuity error here. The first time we see this shot, it says 97.3% in the bottom right, but then 25 minutes later, when we see this shot again, it says 99.9%. Seeing how much of a train wreck this movie has been so far, this feels like a genuine continuity error that they made in post-production instead of like something intentional. So Kraven manages to make it out of the ambush alive, calling Calypso and telling her that it was all a setup and that the Rhino is going to come after her next. In classic Marvel fashion, this call comes at the perfect time because as Calypso looks out the window, she sees 5 men in suits walking into her building. Something that in any other situation probably would be perfectly normal and not alarming at all. You got 5 men in suits walking into an office building, but for some reason she just assumes that these specific 5 men in suits must be bad, evil guys. The Rhino then gives us a little lore drop telling us how he met a biochemist named Miles Warren in New York who developed a procedure to increase strength tenfold, which is how he got the Rhino powers in this spinoff. Miles Warren being another one of the Marvel reference moments for this movie for the diehard Marvel fans, as Miles Warren is better known as the Jackal, another of Spider-Man's nemesis in the Spider-Man universe. Kraven takes Calypso to his home in Russia, he gets attacked by a leopard, and we get this gem of a meme scene.
Yeah, get pissed.
The Foreigner tells Rhino why he hates Kraven. I guess he also just carries around a copy of the Daily Bugle everywhere he goes, specifically for this moment. The Foreigner, in a very kind of convoluted way, manages to trace Kraven to his home in eastern Russia. I guess Kraven isn't the only one who's exceptionally good at hunting people. Kraven tells Calypso he's been trying to recreate the potion that she gave him for reasons. Logically, you would think that he would want another one of these potions as like a way to heal himself should he ever get like hurt or get into trouble. But literally, he says in his own words in this scene,
There's nobody I can't track down, nobody I can't beat. There's nobody can even touch me.
damn, the ego on our man here. So if no one can like even touch him, why would he need to make another one of these like special potions, this special Papa Ligba juice? Don't think about it too hard because they literally never explain it. The Rhino and the Foreigner teleport over to eastern Siberia to hunt down Kraven, the Foreigner bringing along a special toxin that brings on your darkest nightmares and paralyzes your organs before a violent death. Okay, bro, I'm not gonna lie, that feels like a little bit overkill. I mean, it's not like the dude's immune to bullets, so why don't you just use your special, like, mentalist powers and just, like, shoot him in the chest? Next, we get what might be the most memorable scene of the entire movie when Kraven puts this guy's head in a bear trap. I'm not even joking. This is probably the most memorable 3 seconds of the entire movie. Foreigner shoots Kraven with the dart gun with his special nightmare poison. Kraven starts seeing visions of spiders and hearing the voice of his mother, who would also, I guess, hallucinate spiders. I don't know if this was supposed to be like a scene that sets up some kind of reference to like an origin of a beef between Kraven and Spider-Man because he's afraid of spiders, I guess. I don't know. My brain is pretty fried at this point, and if you can't tell, I am very sick. So maybe I'm just linking things that aren't linked at all. So Kraven starts getting his ass kicked as this poison floods through his body. Like, I know that the poison is supposed to eventually kill him and, like, stop his organs anyway, but, like, at this point, dude, just fucking shoot him. Like, the man's obviously off his rocker, so you could easily just shoot him and get it over with. However, finally, when it seems like the foreigner is going to take my advice and just shoot Kraven in the head, suddenly, Kraven is saved by Calypso. Calypso giving Kraven the special Papa Ligba juice, saving him from the poison. Yep, this is legit the only reason why the Calypso character is in this movie, aside from the flashback, literally for this one scene to save Kraven. Outside of this, she's basically completely pointless to be in the movie. Kraven then uses his Dr. Dolittle powers to sick the herd of oxen on Rhino's men. Kraven and Rhino facing off in the final battle. Rhino finally going full Rhino after teasing it for the last hour and 40 minutes. Kraven does his best Spider-Man impression, throwing out a few witty one-liners.
Gosh, you're really heavy.
All of Kraven's attacks are ineffective against Rhino's hard skin until he stabs him in his hole. No, his medicine hole, you f***ing sickos. Rhino gets trampled by the oxen. Demi wants to shoot him, but Kraven stops him, and it doesn't matter because Rhino eventually dies from his wounds. Kraven goes and finds his dad, who is out hunting in northern Russia. His dad asks him how he found him, and, well, you already know the answer.
I'm a hunter.
He's a hunter. He can find anybody. Except for that one guy that Calypso had to find for him. Here we get our big reveal of the movie. Kraven puts it all together that it was his dad who sent the video of him to Rhino because Nikolai just figured out that the mysterious hunter of myth and legend was his own son, I guess. Nikolai revealing it was all a trap set for Rhino as he knew that Rhino would come for Sergei and kidnap Dmitri, thus forcing Sergei to find and kill Rhino, in the process eliminating the problem for Nikolai. Fivehead. Now, Kraven at this point could have easily killed his father numerous times throughout the years, but he never did because he's got some daddy issues. So what does he do here? He uses his Dr. Dolittle animal friendship powers to sick a wild bear on him. I guess they just really wanted to get their best Revenant impression. We flash forward 1 year later, Dmitri is singing Ozzy Osbourne in his club, having taken over the family gangster business. Dmitri telling his brother that he met a doctor in New York that helped him and changed him, this likely again being a reference to Miles Warren, the jackal that helped Rhino. The movie finally revealing that Dmitri, Kraven's brother, has completed his transformation to the supervillain the Chameleon, putting the two brothers at odds in a sequel that will never happen. Chameleon telling Kraven to go home, that his father left him something, as in the final shot of the movie, we see Kraven put on his signature lion pelt jacket, made from the pelt of the lion that mauled him as a child. And this train wreck of a movie, thankfully, finally comes to an end. You know, I have a soft spot in my heart for bad movies. Some of my favorite movies of all time out there are objectively not good movies, like not good works of cinema or art, but they are at least fun to watch. Whether it be the likes of something like many of the Godzilla movies, or one of like Roland Emmerich's disaster movies, or even something as fun as like Pacific Rim. There is a special place in my heart for hilarious bad films. Hell, even Marvel's other major dumpster fire, Morbius, was at least so bad that it was funny and spawned all sorts of hilarious memes. But Kraven the Hunter couldn't even do that. Worse, it wasn't even memorable. Outside of Russell Crowe and a few moments of action like that bear trap scene, I mean, is there really anything memorable that happened in this movie? Personally, I don't think so. I mean, the best two characters, the most fleshed out characters in this entire movie are the two villains, the two antagonists in Nikolai and Rhino. Both of them I wish got way more screen time than they actually got. Outside of them, no other character really feels like they have any real soul or personality whatsoever. Calypso is literally only in the movie so she can bring Kraven back to life after the foreigner fight, and they try to make Kraven this emotionally relatable character with his family dynamic, but they piss all that away by giving him this tough guy, OP, cool main character personality as an adult.
There's nobody I can't track down, nobody I can't beat. There's nobody can even touch me.
So by like midway through the movie, after the flashback, you feel like you can't really relate to this guy at all. There's also like no real clear laid out stakes in this movie. Like, obviously, he's fighting to save his brother, but in every fight scene, bar his encounter with the foreigner kind of in the climax, he is in basically no danger whatsoever. Until finally you see him dying, like in this fight scene here. And by that point, you just don't really care at all. Like, it reminds me of a lot of those anime that make their main character, like, OP as fuck, but, like, not in a comedic way. How am I ever supposed to buy into a fight scene, into a character, if I know that they are, like, basically never in danger and always going to come out on top? Again, I don't think that it's any of the actors' fault that this movie ended up being so shit. I mean, Taylor Johnson has a couple of questionable, like, delivery of lines in this movie, and we're not even going to talk about his questionable, like, Russian-esque accent, but for the most part, he's doing his best with what he was given with, and it's not like he's a bad actor. If anything, I think this movie just shows how good of actors Russell Crowe and Alessandro are, that they are able to somehow give relatively solid performances when the writing for this movie was actually so fucking piss poor. And again, after 2 hours of watching this movie, I still couldn't tell you what all of Kraven's powers were. It honestly just seemed like they wanted to make his powers ambiguous as possible so they could have reason to give him like any power they wanted in any of the scenes and the audience wouldn't question it at all. Maybe in a world where we hadn't had our skulls pounded to death over the last 10 plus years with Marvel movies, this movie might have felt like a breath of fresh air with its violence and quirky characters in the superhero genre. But unfortunately for Kraven the Hunter, it just falls flat. And honestly, I wish at the very least it would have been a hilariously bad movie, but no, it committed a movie's greatest sin, being not memorable at all. And yes, this was Kraven the Hunter, possibly the worst Marvel movie of all time. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think that Kraven the Hunter is the worst Marvel movie of all time? Do you think that Morbius or something else is worse? Or do you think that people were just being a little bit too hard on this movie? Let me know in the comment section. If you did enjoy this video, learn something new, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as that is the easiest way to support me. Apology, guys. I've been sick over the last week, so if my voice sounds like shit, that's why, but I'm just doing my best out here. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Until next time, stay safe out there. Peace. Love. Adu.